Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, candidate for the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. One of the initiatives that I would like to put in place becoming your chairman is to have these things called chairman chats. Remember the fireside chats that Franklin Delano Roosevelt used to have. And it's important that you keep constant communication with the people here in this great state of Texas. And we want to be able to provide you some insights, thoughts, and perspectives from key elected officials, from grassroots leadership, and also let you know what's happening with your Republican Party of Texas and some of the visions that we have going forward, especially in this election year. And right now, when we see what is happening in the state of Texas with the forced isolation, mandatory shelter in place or shelter in home edicts that we see out there, I couldn't think of anyone better to talk to than one of the great law enforcement leaders here in the state of Texas. And that's my dear friend, Sheriff Bill Waybourn from over in Tarrant County, Fort Worth area here in Texas. If there is the epitome of a Texas lawman, it's Sheriff Bill Waybourn. If there's an epitome of someone that's a patriot of these United States of America and the great state of Texas, it is Sheriff Bill Waybourn. Sheriff Waybourn has served in the United States Air Force. He's served as a local police chief, and now he is serving as the sheriff for Tarrant County, Texas, Fort Worth base. Sheriff Waybourn, welcome.
Colonel, thank you, and thank you for your kind words. It's a privilege and an honor to be with you, sir.
Well, it's all mine. And I tell you what, we're facing some interesting, challenging times right now here in the state of Texas and across the United States of America. So when we have come out just recently with these mandatory shelter-in-place orders, what are some of the challenges you see out there as a law enforcement officer for such a big county like Tarrant County?
Well, one of the things that we see is just the rumor mill of what are we doing and what are we enforcing. And quite frankly, we have responded to large gatherings of people. We kindly ask them to disperse, and they do. Mm-hmm. So we haven't had any challenges with the good people of the state of Texas that are doing this. And the whole idea was try to mitigate this virus and shut it down. And as they say, I believe it's a new term in the world, flatten the curve.
Yes.
But as far as our challenges, I think that we're seeing good people do what they're supposed to do, and law enforcement is taking a step back, and we're with the people, not against the people.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because just this week we saw in the state of Virginia where Governor Northam came out and basically said that people trying to assemble to have church services or things like that, even out in the open, they could face a misdemeanor charge. It could end up being $2,500 as a fine, or maybe even up to a year for a misdemeanor one. Do you think that that's the right way that we should be looking and handling and dealing this with the American public, that there's such a level of fear and paranoia that's being driven out there?
All the political leaders here in Tarrant County that have spoken, and I concur with, is we're asking people to not hang out together and not be together. And we're not out to charge anybody with a crime or put anybody in jail, for goodness sakes, or anything like that. We don't want to it's kind of like throwing gas on a fire. Mm-hmm. We're not wanting to do that or be a part of that.
Well, now, when you talk about this coronavirus, COVID-19, have you seen any effects on your sheriff's department, and how are you able to fill up shortages? Because you may have some officers that have to go down and self-isolate for a couple of weeks or so.
Well, we've already shut down some specialized units to use them as, in reserve, but we have been affected by it. We have a deputy out right now that is confirmed with the virus. And there were some people around him that we have had tested, and we're waiting for those tests. And we're trying to very much mitigate. Our biggest concern is, of course, the jail. And what we're doing there is we're basically triaging everybody that goes into the jail. If you come to our jail and you're a prisoner, or an employee, or support staff, we're going to take vitals on you and make sure you're not sick before you go in. So we're doing some really, really strong mitigation to keep from happening that. But we've already had a deputy go down. We've got 2 or 3 that right now have been or will be asked to quarantine at home or in place. And so it's a different world every minute.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, because you have to still protect the civilian populace, and you're going to have to still arrest people that are committing crimes. But we have seen some law enforcement agencies across the country, some elected officials calling for the release of prisoners. I don't think that that's something you're going to be doing there in Tarrant County.
We are not. They will be going through the judicial system, and they will get their due process, and we will. If our jail population goes down because they've gone through the judicial process, that's exactly what happens. We're not letting anybody out.
Now, what are you doing there? Because in case someone wants to say, well, how do you mitigate the effects in the prisons? Are you able to test individuals there? I would think that they're already kind of in self-isolation and they're already kind of sequestered away. So it shouldn't be a big deal. But what are some of the mitigating measures you've put in place?
One, we do have what we refer to as negative airflow private cells or isolated cells that if somebody's showing signs and symptoms, we'll get it to it. The public health department and the local hospital has come alongside, and we have tested a couple of people that could have been had the virus, and they both came back negative so far. So we are watchful of that at all times and making sure that if somebody even shows a hint of it, we isolate them and test them.
Now, are you continuing with your training of future sheriff's deputies? How has that been affected because of these COVID-19?
Well, we are, and our academy is up and running right as we speak. We are first responders, and we need those people in place, and so that training will continue. Along with our military and along with other folks that have to stand on the wall, we've got to go forward.
No, you're absolutely right. And so you don't see any need to, shorten any of that training. You're going to continue on with the normal process.
Right now, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Well, fantastic. There's a big issue going around across the country, and even one of our state representatives, Dustin Burrows here in Texas, has written a letter to the Texas Attorney General. And it's all about the classification of that word essential, and especially when it comes to gun stores and gun ranges. We've seen some mayors across the country, Champaign, Illinois, New Orleans, try to shut down, gun stores. We know that out in Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti has said that he will shut off the utilities and the electricity to businesses that they have deemed, non-essential. What do you think is the right position here in the state of Texas? Because I know that we have seen locally some folks saying that, no, we're not going to shut down gun stores. I think that, that's part of your Second Amendment right. And that's not a fear and paranoia that we want to have amongst our civilian population.
No, it's not. And my view on that is that the shutdown or the shelter in place order says that you can do things to protect your family. Mm-hmm. And us being in Texas, we know that protecting our family might mean the ownership of a firearm. Mm-hmm. So all of our legal gun stores can sell guns today. We're asking people to mitigate the contact inside. So they might be doing curb service and stuff like that. But I've actually worked through that with a couple of gun stores that I believe that they can sell those guns, and people are coming to and fro to pick up their weapons.
Well, that's a great thing. And so the other follow-on to that is you as a sheriff of a very large county here in the state of Texas, are you having regular conference calls or, sharing of best practices with other major county sheriffs such as Dallas, Harris County, Collin County, El Paso County, and Bexar County?
I have either been an email contact or on the phone with everybody you just mentioned today. Mm. And we are going back and forth and talking about things. One of the things that we're wrestling with today is from the major counties is that we're going to be asking the governor maybe to suspend the exchange of prisoners for maybe till this order comes out. So we're just not moving people about the state that we just don't know about, and they'll stay in place. So we are talking, and all of those people are stepping up and answering the call for the day.
What's the shared common theme amongst all of you sheriffs out there that, it serves as a good foundation for going forward through this episode?
Well, I think as a group, what we're trying to do is respond to the public and say, number one, we're not putting up roadblocks and we're not checking papers and doing all that silly stuff, but also is just trying to reiterate that we have got to stay calm. We've got to use common sense and keep our coolness about us as we go along this way. And somebody said, well, if I go in for supplies from a store and somebody's trying to take a gallon of milk from me, I need to be armed. And I'm saying, well, let's just be a good neighbor and let them have that gallon of milk today. Yeah. Let's not fight over that. But we're just trying to reiterate to people that we will get to the other side of that. There is hope. We will make it to the mountaintop, and we will be fine if we just stay calm and cool.
I think that positive attitude is very important, and that's something that should permeate definitely through our law enforcement agencies, because you guys are out there on the ground. What are some of the things that you are working with your sheriff's deputies to be able to diffuse some situations like you just said? For whatever reason, this whole run on toilet paper that has me just confounded. But I'm sure that some of your deputies are running into situations that maybe they have not seen before. Is there some kind of special talking point, training, or whatever that you're providing them?
Well, we are talking to officers about, one, killing the rumors, asking people not to hoard toilet paper, and then talking them through. We're asking deputies to be able to talk them through the crisis. It's saying, we have fought things before. America is an incredible country, trying to give them the incredible things that are helping right now. We got a distillery in Fort Worth that shut down and is making sanitary soap. And then we've got GM and 3M turning around and making masks and getting those out. America is geared up to fight this. And the optimism ought to be as wild a fire as anything. And we're trying to encourage officers to be optimistic with these people that feel like they're in crisis, to give them hope and to talk them down off the ledge for a moment that, hey, there will be meat in the stores tomorrow. There will be paper products tomorrow. And your neighbor isn't going to come in and invade you.
One of the things that I've read, there's a group out in El Paso, Texas, that is talking about how our law enforcement officers should suspend any actions against illegal immigrants and criminal illegal immigrants in our state. What do you think we should be doing with that? I mean, should we stop our basic law enforcement actions and activities because we're facing this coronavirus, or should we make sure we keep American citizens of Texas safe on the streets?
I think the latter, that we got to keep our citizens safe. And as we look across to the open border world of Europe, they're shutting and tightening those borders down because of the threat. And we should be doing the same. And we should continue that law enforcement operation to make sure that these people will, that we keep our citizens safe. That's the bottom line. It's to maintain our sovereignty for sure, but we also need to keep our citizens safe and do our duties to, hey, we need you to sign the guest registry before you come in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when you talk about the sovereignty of the state of Texas or the state of the United States of America, there's also the individual sovereignty that we have out there. And a lot of folks are concerned about the loss of civil liberties. How can you, as a sheriff, play an important positive role in letting people know that it's not about losing their civil liberties, but you're going to do everything to uphold and protect those civil liberties?
Well, the encouragement that we try to give people, and in this sheriff, for instance, in my back pocket as I roll out every day is my Declaration of Independence and my Constitution.
Yes, sir.
And I tell them, this is what I've swore to uphold. And until my dying breath, that's my plan, is to uphold this, and tell them that while we're in crisis, that during difficult times in the United States, including the Civil War and including in World War II, there were things that were done, and the battlefield plan was laid out, and sometimes it wasn't perfect, and we're trying to get through that. And as we get through that and know about each individual position, we want to protect those liberties. Just
Absolutely.
Like people buying guns today, people's freedom of speech, whether it's on social media or someplace else. As our dear old friend Chris Kyle used to say, I just because I fought for that right doesn't mean I necessarily want to listen to you, but I want you to be able to do it.
That's right.
And we still want them to be able to do those things. It's like the prisoners in jail. I still want them to have every due process that they're due. And so we tell people it's criminal justice is business as usual. And the first and foremost is protecting that Constitution.
And that's why we would be remiss for not talking about your reelection that is coming up in this year. So can you give us a little bit of update about the reelection and some of the challenges that you see out there? Because you have a target on your back because of the stances you have taken to support and defend that Constitution and our rule of law.
There have been some groups that have lined up against me, including the U.S. Communism Party and several Democratic Socialist parties and the groups. They really would like to see me removed from office. And I see the challenges of staying ahead of their narrative. the narrative that I'm separating families because of my position on immigration policies, is that I am allowing, and motivating people to shoot people because I believe in the Second Amendment. Those things are getting ahead of their narrative, I think, is the challenge. But also, I believe that if we can get out in front of that, and we can get it even in the Democratic precincts today, I think people are going to be a lot more conservative on the other side of this crisis than they were going into it.
No, you're absolutely right, because I think that everyone understands that very first inalienable right is their life. And you're out there doing everything that you can, supporting the policies, the rule of law that protects their life and their livelihood and their property as well. So when you think about these groups that are out there, how can we help you going forward? And then, of course, let us know your website and everything so that the people watching this video can support you.
Well, at BillWaybourn.com is my website, or BillWaybourn.com, excuse me, at Bill Waybourn's Twitter. I get all these social things, and Sheriff Bill Waybourn Facebook is where we're conducting a lot of that business at. And I think the way that we can help or get you engaged in the rest of Texas is that we've got to kill the rumors, or we got to share the truth. I think the truth will win if we're simply out there making sure that these people are sticking to the facts.
Yeah. And so it's a matter of messaging and controlling that narrative. And also it's the proof in your record. I mean, you have a stellar record over there as a former police chief, North Richmond Hills, if I'm correct. And then
Worthington Gardens.
I'm sorry. And then also as the sheriff there. And so we want to make sure that we keep sheriffs that uphold the rule of law, because, we just saw over in our neighbor to the west in New Mexico, where the governor there just signed into law the red flag laws. And basically she threatened all the sheriffs there in the state of New Mexico that either they enforce it or they resign. So what do you see going forward? I mean, when we have these governors with a progressive socialist outlook, like we have seen in Virginia, it's important that we have those sheriffs that stand up and do, as you said, to support and defend the Constitution and the rule of law and protect individual rights, liberties, and freedoms.
It is so important that the right law enforcement people are in step, or you have a San Francisco on your hands. And that we know, I'm very proud of my brothers in law enforcement out in New Mexico. They stood where they needed to be, and they don't work for the governor. They work for the people, just like the governor out there does. And they're doing the right thing. And certainly the outpour of the great neighbors in Virginia that stood up for their rights. But those are the things. They need the support of their sheriff. And I'm going to be a sheriff, and continue to be a sheriff for that rule of law, as you spoke of, and to defend their constitutions. We just recently led a celebration of the Second Amendment here in Tarrant County. We had several hundred people come out just to celebrate that we have the Second Amendment. And we're going to continue to do things like that and put light on those things that keep our liberties. Great.
Well, any closing comments, any thoughts that you would like to share before we break off this nice little session with a great Texas lawman?
Well, thank you, Colonel, for even having me. And it was such an honor to be with you. And I would say these things is that America, across the country, people are coming together to defeat this enemy at the door that we can't see or touch. And I'm so proud of Americans today, the great patriots of this country and what they're doing. And secondly, the medical people that are showing up every day to do what they do, and our first responders that are showing up, and they're in the jails. They can't keep social distance. They have to touch people. They have to go into harm's way, and they are doing it. And we have a great deal of noble people out there that are doing that. But, I'm proud of the truckers. Keep them on the road. They're getting the supplies there, and the medical people, and every part where government fails a lot of times, and it's not perfect. There's a lot of good things that are happening.
You're absolutely right. And when you think about those folks there that are restocking those shelves overnight in the grocery stores, when we see these folks, we need to be able to give them a little elbow bump or a fist bump. My own daughter is a physician assistant in a hospital over here in Dallas. So it's important that we recognize those first responders, the people that are out there on the front lines that are, yesterday was National Medal of Honor Day. And when we think about the Medal of Honor, been around since 1861, it's about going above and above and beyond the call of duty. And so I want to thank you for what you have been doing your entire life, serving this great nation, serving the state of Texas, serving these local citizens. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to call you friend. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, my friend.
God bless you and have a great day. Sheriff Bill Waybourn, the Sheriff of Tarrant County, Texas. Thank you.
God bless you.